Those of you who have been watching the live streams are well aware that I have recently been playing Punch-Out for Nintendo Wii. One of the absolute best games on the platform, endlessly replayable, incredibly challenging, fun to play, intuitive, a great callback to an NES classic. We really need another one. I don't know why, but this game came out, was such a massive hit, and yet Nintendo never thought, like, oh, maybe we should produce another one. Like, definitely one of those series that I really, really want to see come back. Um, love this game. One of the all-time greats, I think. One of my personal favorite games on Wii. A masterpiece. 10 out of 10. So, what have I come away with on this recent playthrough of Punch-Out for Nintendo Wii? Like, again, I have a lot more perspective on the series now. I think this might be the first time I've played through the game since I beat Mike Tyson and Super Punch Out. So, like, I have a lot more perspective on the series now. Going through it, this is my favorite. Let's get that out of the way now. NES Punch Out is great. It's a little bit too simplistic by today's standards. Super Punch Out was always kind of funky. It's good, but it's far from a Super Nintendo classic. Wii is the gold star of the series for sure. Like, it is phenomenally good. It's so well executed. It's so well put together. It has a ton of content, like lots of cool Easter eggs. Like, it is a top tier Nintendo game in my mind. So with that being said, what have I been thinking about upon playing this game? After such a long hiatus, after such a long break, what is the big takeaway with this? It's way harder than Elden Ring, and it actually respects your time. If you really think about it, if you really compare like boss fights in Elden Ring versus typical fights in Punch Out, what happens? Punch Out, you just fight the same guy over and over again until you get good and beat him. Meanwhile, in Elden Ring, you're just wandering around an empty open world trying to find the next boss so you can get into an encounter that is boring and derivative, right? Punch Out is what Elden Ring wants to be, right? It is a well put together, well executed, interesting, engaging game where you go up against a wide range of challenging bosses. Elden Ring does not have the same amount of challenge. It does not have the same amount of content. It does not have the same amount of replayability. It's not as good. It's not as memorable. It doesn't have like as many frame perfect like attacks. I kind of thought about this while I was playing Punch Out. Like there were several times when I was fighting Bald Bull on title defense where I would like punch and like make a and miss my target, right? When he does the bull charge and you had to like counter punch him to get the star. Like I tried that over and over again and I couldn't do it. But you could tell because of the frames, because of like the way Mac was moving, the way the character was positioned, you can see that like I was either too late or too early with my timing, right? I knew exactly what I was doing, but I just missed, right? I wasn't good enough to execute the technique that I was trying to do. When you compare that with Elden Ring, where basically all you do is just get the most overpowered equipment to beat the boss and then move on to the next boss. Like, there's no challenge to it. There's no nuance to it. There's no personal development or growth, right? It is a casual video game experience, right? It isn't anywhere near as well put together and executed. And the Elden Ring audience doesn't like acknowledging it, right? Elden Ring is not an open world game, is not a good open world game because the open world is empty. There's nothing in it. There's nothing to find. There's nothing to fight. All you're doing is wandering around until you can figure out how to get to the ending. That's it. Outside of that specific thing, Elden Ring has no content. It is completely barren. And Punch Out just stomps it in every way, shape, and form. Like I remember when Sekiro came out, like people had the realization, like if you strip away the RPG growth mechanics in Souls games, all you get is like a cheap knockoff of a Punch Out, and it's not nearly as good or interesting, right? Again, this is why like Fromslop is so reliant on the whole action RPG thing. Because when you really look at the gameplay, when you look at like how choppy the movement is for their characters and how like awkward it is to attack and like the weird artificial way that like enemies move in Elden Ring, all the bosses do this weird stilted like wind up animation that doesn't make any sense. Like again, like Elden Ring feels like a very amateurish project compared to the much more better put together, executed Punch Out. The reality is that like even this Nintendo game, this specific game on an older piece of hardware, far outstrips Elden Ring, right? Like this game demolishes it in every single way, shape, and form.